The afternoon sky over Los Angeles was covered in a thick layer of gray clouds, blocking out the usual bright California sunshine. It was the kind of quiet, heavy day that makes the city feel a little smaller. Inside a massive, high-end car showroom, however, the atmosphere was completely different. The air smelled of expensive leather, fresh wax, and hot coffee. This wasn't just a parking lot. It was a palace for people who had more money than they knew what to do with. In the far corner of the showroom, standing alone near a dusty classic car, was a man who didn't seem to care about the luxury around him. It was Keanu Reeves. He wasn't wearing a suit, and he wasn't surrounded by bodyguards. He was dressed in his usual simple clothes, a dark baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, a worn-out jacket, and scuffed boots. To anyone rushing by, he looked like just another customer trying to kill time on a Tuesday afternoon. But if you looked closely, you could see the focus in his eyes. He wasn't looking at the price tags hanging in the windows. He was looking at the engines. He was running his hand gently over the hood of a vintage American muscle car, appreciating the machine like an artist looking at a painting. Keanu loved cars. For him, they weren't status symbols to show off to neighbors. They were pieces of history, engineering that came from a different time. He enjoyed the silence of the moment. He had come here alone just to escape the noise of the movie industry. He wanted to be normal, if only for an hour. He moved quietly from one car to the next, careful not to touch the paint, treating the vehicles with a respect that most people there didn't have. But on the opposite side of the showroom, the energy was completely different. The owner of the dealership was holding court. He was a man who dressed like he thought money was a personality trait. His suit was too tight, his watch was too big, and his voice was way too loud. He was laughing at jokes that weren't funny and slapping rich clients on the back like they were his best friends, all while trying to steer them toward the most expensive cars on the floor. This man didn't care about engines or history. He cared about commissions. He loved the feeling of being the king of his own little castle. The dealer was pacing around, looking for his next victim. Someone to impress with his knowledge. That was when his eyes scanned the room and landed on the figure in the baseball cap. At first, the dealer didn't recognize him. He just saw a guy in old clothes who probably couldn't afford the hubcaps, let alone the whole car. He frowned, ready to march over and tell the guy to stop touching the merchandise. But as he got closer, the familiar face under the cap clicked in his brain. He stopped dead in his tracks. It was Keanu Reeves. The movie star. The guy from The Matrix. The John Wick. A greedy light flashed in the dealer's eyes. He didn't see a human being who wanted some peace and quiet. He saw a lottery ticket. He saw a walking advertisement. If he could sell a car to Keanu Reeves, he could brag about it forever. He could tell all his other wealthy clients that Keanu buys his cars here. It would make him look cool. It would make his dealership look like the place to be. The dealer smoothed down his jacket and put on his fakest, biggest smile. He abandoned the wealthy couple he was talking to mid-sentence and marched straight toward the back corner. Keanu didn't notice him at first. He was too busy reading the specs on a sticker inside the window of a 1970s model. Hey! Hey there! The dealer shouted, his voice echoing off the glass walls. Keanu flinched slightly, surprised by the noise. He turned around slowly, lowering his hands. He saw the dealer walking toward him with that aggressive, hungry smile. Keanu's body language changed instantly. He didn't want a scene. He just wanted to look at cars. "Hi," Keanu said softly. He gave a polite, small nod. He hoped that would be the end of it. He hoped the dealer would say hello and walk away, but the dealer had no intention of walking away. He invaded Keanu's personal space immediately, standing way too close. He didn't introduce himself. He just started talking. "I knew it was you. I told my partner, I said, that looks like Keanu Reeves. You look great, man." "Just great," the dealer said, talking a mile a minute. He was vibrating with excitement, but it wasn't the excitement of a fan meeting a hero. It was the energy of a shark-smelling blood. "Welcome to my place. This is where the big boys play, right? You got excellent taste standing there. That car is a beast." Keanu looked back at the car, trying to steer the conversation back to the vehicle so the dealer would calm down. Yeah, she's beautiful. The engine sounds amazing, Keanu said, his voice calm and steady. Sounds amazing? She goes like a rocket, my friend. The dealer yelled, laughing loudly and looking around to see if anyone was watching them. He wanted the whole room to know who he was talking to. But you don't want that old thing. That's for collectors. You're a man of action. You need speed. The dealer grabbed Keanu by the elbow and tried to physically pull him toward the center of the room where the bright red, super expensive sports cars were parked under the spotlights. Keanu pulled his arm back gently, stepping out of the dealer's grip. I'm really just looking at the classics today. Thanks, though, Keanu said. He tried to turn his back to the man, hoping the signal was clear. Please leave me alone. The dealer didn't get the hint. In fact, Keanu's rejection made him angry. The dealer was used to people doing what he wanted, especially when he thought he was doing them a favor. He felt embarrassed. Here he was, offering the star of the show the best cars in the house, and the guy wanted to look at dusty old junk. It made the dealer look stupid in front of the few customers who were watching. No, 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 the dealer snapped, his voice dropping that fake friendly tone. He blocked Keanu's path. You're missing out? Come look at this Italian import over here. $200,000. It's the car you drive in the movies, right? This is you? Keanu sighed very quietly. He looked at the exit. He just wanted to leave, but he didn't want to be rude. He was a gentleman. I appreciate it, really. I'm not looking for anything that flashy. I'm happy just browsing. Browsing? The dealer laughed, but it was a mean laugh. Nobody comes here just to browse, my friend. We move metal here. Look, let me show you the inside of this one. It's got screens everywhere. It's got gold trim. It's perfect for a celebrity. The dealer raised his voice, making sure the couple looking at a sedan nearby could hear him. Hey, everyone. Look who decided to stop by. Keanu Reeves is checking out the top tier. The big man is here. People started to whip their heads around. Phones started to come out of pockets. The quiet, private afternoon Keanu wanted was shattering into pieces. The dealer had a wide smile on his face, thinking he was the host of the greatest show on earth, while Keanu stood there with his hands in his pockets, looking down at the floor. He could feel the eyes of the room burning into him. He could feel the tension rising in the air like a storm warning. The dealer wasn't just selling a car anymore. He was selling Keanu's privacy, and he didn't care who he hurt to make a sale. The noise in the showroom was getting louder, but Keanu Reeves seemed to shrink into himself. The air, which had smelled like leather and wax only minutes ago, now felt thick and heavy with tension. The dealer was still shouting, waving his arms around like a conductor of a chaotic orchestra, desperately trying to get everyone in the building to look at him and his famous customer. Phones were coming out of pockets. The shutters of camera phones clicked like a swarm of mechanical insects. Keanu kept his head down, the brim of his baseball cap hiding his eyes, but you could tell he was uncomfortable. His shoulders were tense, pulled up tight toward his ears. He was trapped in a glass box and the walls were closing in. The dealer, however, was feeding off the attention. He had a wide, fake grin plastered on his face, but his eyes were cold and calculating. He saw the phones recording and he thought this was his big moment. He didn't care that Keanu looked like he wanted to be anywhere else on Earth. To the dealer, the actor wasn't a person with feelings. He was a prop. Come on, everyone. Look at this. The dealer bellowed, his voice bouncing off the high ceiling. The big star is here, Keanu. Tell them which one you want. The red one? The black one? I'll give you the family discount, my friend. Keanu let out a breath that was more like a sigh. He put his hands up gently, palms out, in a universal sign for stop. He took a small step backward, trying to put distance between himself and the shouting man. He spoke softly, barely loud enough to be heard over the hum of the air conditioner. Really, man, I'm just looking, Keanu said. His voice was calm, almost tired. I'm not buying anything today. I don't want the red car. I'm just here to look around. The dealer froze. The smile didn't leave his face immediately. It just cracked. It was like a mask slipping. He lowered his arms, but his body stiffened. In his mind, Keanu wasn't just declining a car. He was ruining the show. He was making the dealer look foolish in front of the wealthy customers he had been trying to impress all day. The dealer felt a hot spark of anger in his chest. He felt entitled. He felt that because he was the owner and Keanu was the customer, Keanu should be grateful for his attention. The dealer stepped closer, invading Keanu's personal space again. He leaned in, dropping the friendly salesman act completely. "What do you mean, you're just looking?" The dealer hissed. The change in his tone was sharp. The volume went down, but the aggression went up. "You come into my place, you waste my time, you let me introduce you to everyone. And now you say you're just looking? That's rude, man. That's disrespectful." Keanu looked at him, his eyes sad but steady. He didn't want to fight. He just wanted the conversation to be over. "I didn't ask for an introduction," Keanu said quietly. "I just wanted to walk around. Please, just let me enjoy the cars." He turned his body away, angling himself toward a classic motorcycle displayed in the corner of the room. It was a silent signal. "I am done talking to you," for a normal person. This would have been the moment to walk away and cool off. But this dealer wasn't normal. He was an egomaniac having a bad day. The rejection stung him like a slap. He felt small, and he hated feeling small. The alcohol on his breath, which Keanu and others had started to notice, seemed to fuel his confidence. He decided he wasn't going to let some movie star ignore him on his own floor. "You think you're better than me or something?" The dealer asked, his voice rising again. He followed Keanu, matching his step for step. He wasn't selling anymore. He was stalking. "You think because you're in the movies you can treat people like dirt? I know your type. You act all humble, but really you're just arrogant." Keanu stopped walking. He stood by the motorcycle, his back to the dealer for a second, before slowly turning around. He looked confused. He genuinely didn't understand why this was happening. He had been polite. He had said, "No, why wasn't that enough?" "I'm not trying to treat you badly," Keanu said, his voice still surprisingly level given the harassment. "I just wanted to be left alone. I'm going to go now." He started to walk toward the glass doors at the front of the showroom. The exit was right there. Freedom was only 50 feet away. The crowd of customers had stopped looking at cars entirely now. They were staring at the drama unfolding. A few people looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight from foot to foot. A couple of guys in expensive suits were snickering, enjoying the show. No one stepped in to help. They just watched like it was a scene in a movie that hadn't been scripted yet. As Keanu walked past the gleaming sports cars in the center of the room, the dealer lunged forward and grabbed his arm. It wasn't a friendly tap. It was a grip intended to stop him. The dealer's fingers dug into Keanu's jacket sleeve. "Don't walk away when I'm talking to you," the dealer shouted. His face was turning red. The veins in his neck were popping out. He was making a scene and he didn't care. He felt powerful because he could physically hold the movie star there. "I spent time with you. I showed you the best cars. You owe me some respect." Keanu pulled his arm back, firmly breaking the dealer's grip. "Hey, don't touch me," Keanu said. His voice was sharper now. There was a warning in it. He wasn't asking any more. He was telling him. The dealer stumbled back a step, but the anger in his eyes turned into pure rage. Now he had an audience, he had a target, and he had been humiliated by a movie star. He felt like he had to defend his territory. "You think you're tough?" The dealer screamed, spitting a little as he talked. "You think you're John Wick? You're just a fake. You're nothing. Get out of my shop. Get out and don't come back." He was pushing Keanu backward with every word, stepping into his face, waving his finger inches from Keanu's nose. The insults were flying fast and ugly now. He was attacking Keanu's career, his talent, and his character. He was calling him names that had nothing to do with cars and everything to do with tearing a man down. Keanu kept backing up, trying to keep the distance. He was breathing harder now, his chest rising and falling. You could see the adrenaline starting to kick in, but he was fighting it. He was using every ounce of self-control he had not to retaliate. This was a man who spent years training in martial arts, a man who could probably disarm an attacker in a second. But he stood there and took the verbal abuse. He refused to become the monster this dealer was trying to provoke. "I'm leaving," Keanu said one last time. He turned his back on the screaming man. The showroom went silent for a split second. All eyes were on the dealer. The man was breathing heavy, his fists clenched at his sides. He looked at Keanu's back, at the man walking away, and something inside him snapped. Logic went out the window. The fear of consequences vanished. He saw a target and he decided to strike. He wasn't going to let Keanu Reeves have the last word. He wasn't going to let him walk out the door like he was the bigger man. The dealer took 2 quick, heavy steps forward. His face was twisted in a mask of pure hatred. He drew his hand back. The energy in the room shifted instantly from awkward to dangerous. The bystanders gasped, sensing what was coming before it happened. The dealer wasn't going to yell anymore. He was going to make sure Keanu Reeves never forgot this visit. He lunged forward, ready to shove the movie star with everything he had, completely unaware that his life was about to change forever in the next few seconds. The dealer's hands made contact with Keanu's back with a sudden, violent force. It wasn't a clumsy trip or a friendly nudge. It was a 2-handed shove fueled by pure aggression. Because Keanu was turned away, his body was completely unprepared for the impact. He didn't have a chance to brace his feet or tense his muscles. Time seemed to slow down in that split second. Keanu stumbled forward, his boots scuffing loudly against the polished concrete floor. He tried to catch his balance, waving his arms slightly, but the momentum was too strong. He crashed sideways, his hips slamming hard into the metal frame of a vintage car parked near the aisle. The impact made a sickening thud that echoed through the quiet showroom. Then he tumbled slightly, catching himself against the hood of the car to stop from falling to the ground completely. For a moment, there was total silence in the building. It was the kind of heavy, shocked silence that happens when something happens that nobody believes is actually real. The air conditioning seemed to hum louder than usual. The only sound was the heavy, ragged breathing of the dealer. The dealer didn't look worried. He didn't look sorry. As Keanu steadied himself against the car, the dealer stepped back, puffing out his chest. He looked like a prizefighter who had just landed a knockout punch. His face was twisted into an arrogant sneer. He wiped his hands on his expensive suit jacket as if touching Keanu had dirtied him. To the dealer, this wasn't an assault. It was a victory. He had put the movie star in his place. He had shown everyone that he was the alpha male in the room. "Yeah? That's right?" the dealer shouted, his voice booming in the quiet space. He pointed a shaking finger at Keanu's back. "You think you can walk away from me? You think you're too good? Nobody walks away from me." Every person in the showroom was frozen. The wealthy couples, the mechanics in the back, the receptionist at the desk, they were all staring with their mouths open. They couldn't believe what they had just seen. A car salesman had physically attacked one of the most famous actors in the world. It was insanity, but then the atmosphere shifted. People watching knew who Keanu Reeves was. They had seen his movies. They knew he trained for hours a day in jiu-jitsu and judo. They knew he played the ultimate assassin on screen. A ripple of anticipation went through the crowd. Phones were raised higher, recording every second. The onlookers were expecting the John Wick mode to switch on. They were waiting for Keanu to turn around, wipe the floor with this bully, and deliver a cinematic punch that would be viral on the internet by the evening. The dealer, in his drunken arrogance, seemed to want exactly that. He shifted his stance, bouncing on the balls of his feet, raising his fists in a clumsy boxing pose. He was taunting the actor, begging for a fight. Come on, movie boy," he yelled, spitting the words out. "Show me what you got. You think you're tough? Let's go." He was ready to brawl. He was ready to make a scene that would destroy his business but satisfy his massive ego. He truly believed he could take on a trained action hero. Keanu remained with his back turned for a few seconds, his hand resting on the cool metal of the car. He was breathing steadily. To anyone watching, it looked like he was trying to recover from the shove, but inside he was making a choice. He was processing the adrenaline pumping through his veins. His fight-or-flight instinct was screaming at him to defend himself. He could have turned around and knocked the dealer out with one punch. He could have hurt him badly. The skill was there. The power was there, but Keanu slowly exhaled, letting the tension drain out of his shoulders. He didn't clench his fists. He didn't ball his hands into weapons. Instead, he deliberately relaxed his posture. He realized that this man wasn't a villain from a script. He was just a sad, drunk person having a terrible breakdown in public. Hitting him wouldn't solve anything. It would just make the chaos worse. Slowly, Keanu pushed himself off the car. He stood up straight, fixing his jacket with a calm, deliberate motion. He checked his hip where he had hit the car frame, likely making sure nothing was broken, but he didn't show any pain. The dealer stopped bouncing. He watched Keanu turn around, and for the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He saw Keanu's eyes. They weren't filled with the rage he expected. They weren't filled with fear. They were calm, focused, and intensely human. There was no anger there, only a look of disappointment that somehow felt worse than any punch could ever feel. Keanu turned fully to face his attacker. The distance between them was only a few feet. The dealer was still panting, his hands up, ready to fight. But Keanu stood still, his feet planted, his hands hanging loosely at his sides. He looked at the dealer with a quiet intensity that silenced the room. "You pushed me," Keanu said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. His voice was low and steady, cutting through the tension like a knife. The dealer's chest heaved. You deserved it. You were rude." The dealer stammered, but his confidence was crumbling. The lack of fear coming from Keanu was confusing him. He didn't know how to react to someone who refused to fight back. Keanu took a small step closer, closing the gap. The dealer flinched, thinking the strike was coming, but Keanu just stood there. He looked the man in the eyes, treating him not like an enemy, but like a human being who had lost his way. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the explosion. But the explosion never came. Instead of violence, Keanu offered a presence that was unshakable. It was the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. The dealer's arms slowly lowered. He looked around the room, seeing the phones recording, seeing the looks of disgust on the faces of his other customers. He looked back at Keanu, who was standing there, calm amidst the storm. The reality of what he had done started to sink in. He had attacked a good man in front of dozens of witnesses, and the only person acting with dignity in the room was the one he had shoved. The dealer's face went from red to pale white. The sneer vanished, replaced by a look of utter confusion and shame. The alpha dog act was falling apart, and he was left standing there, realizing he was the only villain in this story. Keanu waited, giving the man a moment to process it. The silence stretching out between them, heavy and suffocating for the dealer, but light and effortless for the actor. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. The dealer was still standing in his ridiculous fighting stance, fists raised like a boxer in a ring, waiting for a blow that refused to come. He was panting heavily, sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes darting around the room. The adrenaline that had fueled his sudden rage was starting to fade, replaced by a creeping coldness in his stomach. He looked at Keanu, searching for anger, searching for fear, but he found none of that. Keanu stood there, perfectly still. He looked at the dealer not with hatred, but with a quiet, pitying curiosity. It was the kind of look you might give a stray dog that snarls at you out of fear. Keanu slowly exhaled, the sound audible in the quiet showroom. He took a deliberate moment to straighten his jacket, pulling the hem down where it had ridden up. Then, incredibly, he turned his attention away from the man who had just assaulted him. Keanu looked down at the vintage car he had been shoved against. He ran a gentle hand over the chrome bumper where his body had hit the metal. He inspected the surface closely, looking for scratches or dents. He treated the car with more care than the dealer had treated him. It was a small action, but it screamed volumes about his character. He was worried about the property, about the object, about something other than his own ego. The dealer's arms dropped to his sides. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at his own hands, then back at Keanu. The dynamic had flipped so suddenly it made the dealer dizzy. He had tried to paint Keanu as the villain, the arrogant celebrity who needed to be taught a lesson. But Keanu's refusal to fight back, his calm concern for the car, was stripping that narrative away. Now, the dealer just looked like a bully who had picked a fight with the nicest guy in the room. Keanu finally looked back up. He locked eyes with the dealer. There was no mocking in his gaze, just a steady, calm presence. "It's okay," Keanu said softly. His voice carried no sarcasm. He meant it. The dealer blinked, confused. "What?" Keanu took a small step closer. The dealer flinched, expecting a retaliation, but Keanu just held his ground. "I think you're having a bad day," Keanu said. "I'm sorry if I upset you. I didn't mean to." The words hit the dealer harder than any punch could have. If Keanu had yelled or pushed him back, the dealer could have justified his anger. He could have told himself, "See? He's just another angry thug." But this kindness in the face of aggression was disarming. It stripped away the dealer's defenses. He had no armor against someone who refused to be his enemy. The crowd watched in stunned amazement. Phones were still recording, capturing the surreal interaction. You could see people lowering their phones slightly, their expressions changing from excitement to awe. They were witnessing something rare. In a world where everyone is quick to argue, quick to sue, quick to fight for respect, here was a man who had every right to be furious, choosing forgiveness instead. The dealer's face started to crumble. The arrogance, the sneer, the tough guy mask, it all slid away, leaving behind a tired, embarrassed man. He looked around the room and saw the faces of his other customers. They weren't looking at him with respect anymore. They were looking at him with disgust. He realized he hadn't won a fight. He had destroyed his reputation. He had attacked a national treasure for absolutely no reason. You didn't do anything?" the dealer mumbled. His voice was shaky, barely a whisper. He looked down at the floor, unable to meet Keanu's eyes anymore. I don't know why I did that. I'm messed up." Keanu nodded slightly. He didn't gloat. He didn't say, "You sure are." He just accepted the confession. "We all have bad moments," Keanu said. "It's all right. Just take a breath." He reached into his pocket. The dealer tensed up again for a split second, wondering if Keanu was pulling out a phone to call the police or maybe a lawyer. But Keanu just pulled out a card. It wasn't a business card with his name on it. It was a simple card, maybe for his mechanic or a charity. He held it out toward the dealer. "If you want to talk about cars sometime, when you're feeling better, give me a call," Keanu said. It was such a strange, unexpected offer. The dealer stared at the card like it was an alien artifact. The actor he had just assaulted was offering him friendship, or at least professional respect. Keanu held the card there for a moment, but the dealer didn't take it. His hands were shaking too much. So, Keanu gently placed the card on the hood of the car between them. "Just take it easy, okay?" Keanu said. He didn't wait for a response. He didn't wait for an apology. He didn't demand the dealer be fired or arrested. He simply turned around and walked back toward the desk where the sales managers were sitting. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. No one tried to stop him. No one asked for a selfie. The mood in the room had shifted so drastically that it felt disrespectful to even approach him. He wasn't a movie star right now. He was something else. He was a lesson in humility that no one there would ever forget. The dealer stood alone by the vintage car. He looked at the card on the hood. He looked at the video cameras pointed at him from every angle. The reality of the situation crashed down on him. He had thrown a punch at the wind, and the wind had refused to strike back. He felt small. He felt incredibly small. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow, sick feeling in his gut. He realized that while Keanu would walk out of this story looking like a hero, the dealer was going to walk out looking like the villain in his own life story. The power of Keanu's reaction wasn't that he was weak. It was that he was strong enough to control the chaos. By absorbing the dealer's hate and giving back nothing but peace, he had ended the conflict instantly. The dealer had no fuel left to burn. He stood there, shoulders slumped, defeated not by violence, but by a grace he couldn't understand. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. The dealer was still standing in his ridiculous fighting stance, fists raised like a boxer in a ring, waiting for a blow that refused to come. He was panting heavily, sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes darting around the room. The adrenaline that had fueled his sudden rage was starting to fade, replaced by a creeping coldness in his stomach. He looked at Keanu, searching for anger, searching for fear, but he found none of that. Keanu stood there, perfectly still. He looked at the dealer not with hatred, but with a quiet, pitying curiosity. It was the kind of look you might give a stray dog that snarls at you out of fear. Keanu slowly exhaled, the sound audible in the quiet showroom. He took a deliberate moment to straighten his jacket, pulling the hem down where it had ridden up. Then, incredibly, he turned his attention away from the man who had just assaulted him. Keanu looked down at the vintage car he had been shoved against. He ran a gentle hand over the chrome bumper where his body had hit the metal. He inspected the surface closely, looking for scratches or dents. He treated the car with more care than the dealer had treated him. It was a small action, but it screamed volumes about his character. He was worried about the property, about the object, about something other than his own ego. The dealer's arms dropped to his sides. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at his own hands, then back at Keanu. The dynamic had flipped so suddenly it made the dealer dizzy. He had tried to paint Keanu as the villain, the arrogant celebrity who needed to be taught a lesson. But Keanu's refusal to fight back, his calm concern for the car, was stripping that narrative away. Now, the dealer just looked like a bully who had picked a fight with the nicest guy in the room. Keanu finally looked back up. He locked eyes with the dealer. There was no mocking in his gaze, just a steady, calm presence. "It's okay," Keanu said softly. His voice carried no sarcasm. He meant it. The dealer blinked, confused. "What?" Keanu took a small step closer. The dealer flinched, expecting a retaliation, but Keanu just held his ground. "I think you're having a bad day," Keanu said. "I'm sorry if I upset you." "I didn't mean to." The words hit the dealer harder than any punch could have. If Keanu had yelled or pushed him back, the dealer could have justified his anger. He could have told himself, "See? He's just another angry thug." But this kindness in the face of aggression was disarming. It stripped away the dealer's defenses. He had no armor against someone who refused to be his enemy. The crowd watched in stunned amazement. Phones were still recording, capturing the surreal interaction. You could see people lowering their phones slightly, their expressions changing from excitement to awe. They were witnessing something rare. In a world where everyone is quick to argue, quick to sue, quick to fight for respect, here was a man who had every right to be furious, choosing forgiveness instead. The dealer's face started to crumble. The arrogance, the sneer, the tough guy mask, it all slid away, leaving behind a tired, embarrassed man. He looked around the room and saw the faces of his other customers. They weren't looking at him with respect anymore. They were looking at him with disgust. He realized he hadn't won a fight. He had destroyed his reputation. He had attacked a national treasure for absolutely no reason. You didn't do anything," the dealer mumbled. His voice was shaky, barely a whisper. He looked down at the floor, unable to meet Keanu's eyes anymore. I don't know why I did that. I'm messed up." Keanu nodded slightly. He didn't gloat. He didn't say, "You sure are." He just accepted the confession. Keanu walked away from the shattered man in the center of the room and headed straight for the sales counter. The air in the showroom was still heavy, like the atmosphere after a thunderstorm, but the path in front of him cleared as he moved. People stepped aside without thinking, not just because they recognized the celebrity, but because they felt the gravity of what had just happened. They were witnessing a masterclass in self-control, and nobody wanted to get in the way. Behind him, the dealer remained frozen. He looked like a statue that was crumbling. The card Keanu had left sat on the hood of the vintage car, catching the reflection of the showroom lights. The dealer stared at it, his breathing shallow. He could feel the eyes of his customers boring into his back. He could feel the judgment radiating from every corner. He wanted to say something, to apologize, or to scream, but his throat felt tight. He was stuck in the wreckage of his own ego, watching the man he had attacked act as if nothing had happened. At the front desk, a young sales assistant was standing with a clipboard in hand. He looked terrified. He had watched the whole thing, his boss losing his mind, the shoving, the shock, and now the famous actor was walking toward him. The assistant didn't know if he was supposed to call the police or offer a bottle of water. His hands were shaking slightly. Keanu stopped at the counter and offered the young man a small, tired smile. It was a genuine smile, the kind that reached his eyes and instantly put people at ease. "Hi," Keanu said softly, his voice carrying that familiar calm rasp. "I know it's been a little chaotic in here. I'm really sorry about the disruption." The assistant blinked, completely taken aback. No, sir, don't apologize. Are you okay? That looked crazy." "I'm all right," Keanu said with a dismissive nod. "I'm all right. But listen, I was serious about that bike in the corner. The classic one. I still really want to buy it. I'd love to get the paperwork started if we can." The assistant looked past Keanu, checking on the boss, who was still standing shell-shocked in the middle of the floor. Usually, buying a vehicle like this required the manager's approval, especially after a scene like that. But the assistant looked at Keanu's calm face and decided he didn't care about the rules right now. "Absolutely," the assistant said, finding his voice. "We can do it right now. I can handle it." Keanu pulled out his wallet. It wasn't a flashy designer wallet. It was worn out and held together with a rubber band. He handed over his credit card and his ID with steady hands. While the assistant typed away on the computer, Keanu stood patiently. He didn't complain about the wait. He didn't make a scene about the price. He leaned against the counter, looking around the room. Every few seconds, someone would try to make eye contact with him, a teenager in the corner, a mechanic wiping his hands on a rag, and every time Keanu offered a polite nod or a small wave, he was acknowledging them, seeing them as people, not just an audience. It was a stark contrast to the dealer, who had spent the day seeing people only as dollar signs. Across the room, the dealer finally moved. He took a shaky step toward his office, but he stopped. He saw Keanu standing there, patiently signing the receipt. He watched the way Keanu treated the young assistant with respect. It broke something inside the dealer. He realized that in one moment of blind rage he had thrown away a lifetime of professional dignity. He had tried to humiliate a man who was incapable of being humiliated because he didn't care about status. The dealer turned away and walked into his back office, closing the door quietly. Defeated by the weight of his own shame, within 15 minutes the transaction was complete. Keanu signed the last paper and took the keys. He shook the young assistant's hand firmly. "Thanks for your help. You did a great job." The assistant beamed, standing a little taller. "Thank you, sir. It's an honor." Keanu turned and walked toward the motorcycle he had just purchased. It wasn't the fastest bike in the shop, and it certainly wasn't the most expensive, but it was the one he wanted. He put on his helmet and gloves with practiced ease. He didn't look back at the spot where the confrontation happened. He didn't look for the dealer. He just started the engine. The engine roared to life, a deep, mechanical sound that cut through the remaining tension in the showroom. Keanu gave one last wave to the room, a simple, friendly gesture, and then he rode out the open glass doors and into the afternoon sun. As soon as he left, the room seemed to let out a collective breath. But the story didn't end there. In fact, it was just beginning. By the next morning, the internet was on fire. Dozens of videos from different angles had been uploaded to social media. The footage was clear: the aggressive dealer shouting, the violent shove, and then the incredible, shocking restraint of Keanu Reeves. Millions of people watched the video within hours. Comments sections exploded, not with talk about movies or car stunts, but with discussions about character. News outlets picked up the story. But the headlines weren't "Keanu Reeves attacked." They were "Keanu Reeves shows the world how to handle a bully." People were analyzing his reaction frame by frame. Psychologists were talking about emotional intelligence on morning talk shows. The story resonated because everyone had encountered someone angry and unreasonable like that dealer. But almost no one had responded the way Keanu did. The backlash against the dealership was swift and brutal. Negative reviews flooded their website and Google Maps page. People called for a boycott of the business. The public wasn't interested in hearing the dealer's side of the story. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. The dealer, who had wanted so badly to be famous and powerful, was now infamous. He had gotten the attention he craved, but it was the kind of attention that ruins careers. Meanwhile, Keanu was spotted a few days later at a coffee shop. He was wearing the same worn-out jacket, buying a coffee for himself and a treat for a stranger in line behind him. He didn't give interviews about the incident. He didn't post about it on social media. He didn't use the event to promote a new movie. He just kept living his life. That was the most shocking part of the story for many people. It wasn't just that he hadn't fought back in the showroom. It was that he refused to let the event turn him into a victim or a hero. He treated it as just another bump in the road. The incident became a modern parable, a story people told their children about what true strength looks like. The dealer learned a painful lesson that day, that you can't win a fight against a man who refuses to fight you. And the world learned that the toughest action hero on the big screen didn't need fists to win a battle. All he needed was patience, grace, and the quiet confidence to be himself. Even when someone was trying to tear him down. As the motorcycle disappeared down the highway that day, it left behind a cloud of dust and a room full of people who realized they had just seen something they would never forget. In a world full of noise and anger, Keanu Reeves had proven that kindness is the ultimate power move.